Hello, everybody. Greetings from Hangzhou in China, home to DeepSeek, and I'm standing right in front of DeepSeek's office here in Hangzhou. And Hangzhou is also home to Alibaba, the dominant company in this ecosystem, from where a whole range of other innovative companies have been born. The interesting thing about being in China is that each of the different major cities represent different ecosystems, and I could be just as well in Beijing, which was setting itself up to be the home of AI, and then it got upstaged by Hangzhou. The most important development that we're thinking about today is that both DeepSeek as well as Alibaba's QN or Quen 2.5 have upstaged the big players in the US, both OpenAI's ChatGPT 4o as well as Llama. But what I'd like to suggest is that we need to break these developments down into their components in order for us to be able to understand what it's all about and where it's heading. And I suggest that we break them down into the technology aspect of what's going on the technology front, and then the ecosystems that are evolving in different parts of the world, and thirdly, and only then, to think a little bit about the geopolitical implications. On the technology front, it is not a China versus US story. It is really a battle between open source and closed systems, a black box approach. The funny thing about OpenAI is that despite its name, it has been trying to build a closed black box approach to the foundational models in AI that it could then leverage off and generate income. And so what DeepSeek has done, and a number of other players, but DeepSeek most of all, is that it has made the foundational models accessible to anyone everywhere on an open source platform. When we think about where DeepSeek and Alibaba's QN are playing right now, we need to take into consideration that developments are taking place in AI at different layers. There is the foundational layer on which the models are developed, which is where both QN and DeepSeek have made a profound impact. But there are also developments taking place in the generative AI space, and then in the agentic AI, where OpenAI just introduced something called Operator to be able to enable end users to enable the AI platform to do the thinking on their behalf, or the processing of requests on their behalf. And then comes the application layer. So there is still a long way to go for developments to take place, and they don't necessarily need to take place here in China or in the US. My guess as to why the Chinese have come up to the front is because a lot of the work being done at the foundational layer is where the confluence of hardware and software come together. There is a great need to make the hardware far more efficient, and the fact that the Chinese have been denied access to leading edge hardware technology has enabled them or forced them to start thinking about efficiencies and productivity and all kinds of applications on the limited access that they have at the moment. But eventually, a lot of the skills will move on to software, and there may be other communities out there who might well be able to dominate or make breakthroughs at the application or even agentic layer. But the one impact that both DeepSeek and Alibaba have been able to make is to commoditize the foundational layer. So if OpenAI thought that the value of being a dominant AI player is at the foundational layer, that's now accessible by the end user. You can download it, you can personalize it, you can edit it, and you can make it do what you would like to do, both as an individual or as an enterprise. On the open source front, some of the founders, like the founders of Llama, are already also working on the merging of technologies, of frontier technologies such as AI with blockchain, for example, in order to be able to personalize the technology for end users. The second dimension are the ecosystems that are being developed in the different parts of the world. And here in China, very interestingly, there is competition, intense competition between the traditional platform players who are now getting into AI, the Baidus, the ByteDance, the Alibabas, and so on. And the other competition, which is between the cities. The ecosystems between the cities are very different one from the other. So like here in Hangzhou, Hangzhou is the home of Alibaba, which has given rise to a number of many unicorns and hundreds and thousands of little players who all work with each other and contribute to the critical mass in the city. And so it's not surprising that both DeepSeek and Alibaba's own AI initiatives have evolved from the city. And that's different from what's happening in Beijing, where my friends who run the AI companies there are funded largely by state funding and by the universities and represent a very different ecosystem. In fact, I can imagine Li Kai-fu in Beijing being very upset that it wasn't him that pushed the frontier of AI in the way that DeepSeek did. The third element in there, in the ecosystems being built, is the big debate whether China should subscribe to an open source approach to developing AI. The interesting thing there is that China has been a beneficiary of open source, and DeepSeek, not being a major platform player, has been able to release a version of its model to the rest of the world without having to be regulated by the Cybersecurity Administration of China. So there's a lot of conversations taking place right now where DeepSeek is being asked about its opinions on things like open source. And the thinking on open source in China is also twofold, just like in the US. Players like Baidu think that the Chinese players should protect a lot more of their IP or develop an open source platform that is unique to China. And that's very difficult to do because I've seen how in the days of Wikipedia and GitHub, the Chinese players never really created an ecosystem that is local to China. And it's only when we consider these factors when we then go on to talk about geopolitics. Is AI a demonstration of the geopolitics between China and the US? And my answer to that is that just like in the days of the chip war, which is still raging today, China wants desperately to develop its own creativity and its own frontiers in technology and to be the world's leading player on a number of fronts. But the nature of these technologies is that they benefit from ecosystems that are essentially global, that regardless of where you manufacture, you should be in a position to benefit from developments and breakthroughs taking place anywhere in the world. So some people say that China has got a population of 1.5 billion people with millions of engineers being graduated into the market every year, whereas the US, despite its small size, 300 million people, has access to 7 billion people and talent who come from anywhere in the world. And that's what China eventually wants to become or needs to become in order to be a global player, that this is the country where anybody from anywhere in the world would want to come here and contribute to the development of this country and find their own careers being recognized and being and being a part of a bigger picture. So I think that that day will come eventually, but now is not the time that China is thinking along those lines. But that this technology battlefield is eventually creating ecosystems in China that are at first competitive domestically, and then eventually China has to figure out a way in which it can be attractive to the rest of the world. So that's all I have to say on this topic. So I'm now on my way to Beijing, and I might be able to get some insights on how the thinking is in that part of the country. Bye for now.